Ayelet Waldman, A Really Good Day, How Microdosing Made a Mega Difference in My Mood, My Marriage, and My Life. Embark on a transformative journey with Ayelet Waldman in her book, A Really Good Day, How Microdosing Made a Mega Difference in My Mood, My Marriage, and My Life. After trying a multitude of mood-stabilizing medications and therapies to no avail, Waldman turns to microdosing LSD to regain control over her life. This engaging summary unravels the process of microdosing, the effects it had on the author's daily life, and the societal and legal implications that surrounded her decision to try this experimental approach. Prepare to dive into a world of neuroscience, personal mental health, and societal issues while gaining a new perspective on the potential benefits of microdosing.
The Quest for Mood Stability. Ayelet Waldman, a successful author plagued by inconsistent moods and an array of psychological issues, spent years navigating different therapies and medications, only to find her mental health still wavering. After discovering that her depression was directly correlated to her menstrual cycle, she learned to manage her moods through medication aligned with her cycle. However, her mental stability was once again challenged during perimenopause, leading Waldman to explore the work of James Fadiman, a former psychedelic researcher, who advocated for microdosing LSD as a potential solution to mood problems. Ayelet Waldman's life had been a roller coaster of erratic moods, swinging from the ecstatic highs of cheery sociability to troubling lows filled with self-hatred, shame, and guilt. The latter often carried over into her relationships, causing tension and strife within her circle of loved ones. Her journey to regain control initially led her to therapy. She explored various modalities, from Freudian to cognitive behavioral approaches and even mindfulness meditation, which she admittedly despised. Desperate for a solution, she sought medical help after a particularly harrowing encounter with suicidal ideation. After being diagnosed with bipolar II disorder, Waldman spent years cycling through an expansive list of medications, including Celexa, Prozac, Zoloft, and more. Though these medications provided temporary relief, they came with a slew of undesirable side effects. Her breakthrough came upon discovering that her diagnosis was inaccurate. Instead, her mood swings correlated with her menstrual cycle, pointing to a condition called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. This revelation allowed Waldman to understand her mood patterns and medicate accordingly. However, things took an unexpected turn during the perimenopause when her cycle became irregular and her emotional state once more unstable. Driven to find a more consistent solution, Waldman stumbled across James Fadiman's work on microdosing LSD. Fadiman's research on using minuscule amounts of LSD to treat mood disorders sparked Waldman's curiosity, as participants reported significantly improved days. Ultimately, Waldman found herself chasing the promise of a genuinely good day, a dream she had harbored throughout her journey with mental health. The Microdosing Experiment. The concept of microdosing is still so new that the author had to teach her computer's spell checker to recognize it. The principle involves taking a tiny dose of LSD on a repeating 3-day cycle to improve mood without causing hallucinations or noticeable mental effects. Typically, microdosers take 1/10 of a normal dose, around 10 micrograms, as opposed to the 100 to 150 micrograms for a full trip experience. Waldman, curious yet cautious, decided to explore microdosing for a month to help manage her mood issues. Acquiring her supply from a fellow microdoser, she even tested it with a drug kit for safety. Upon starting the experiment, she noticed a significant improvement in her overall well-being. Microdosing, a journey to happiness. On her first day of microdosing LSD, Waldman experienced heightened awareness, mindfulness, and love towards her family, leading to a highly productive and happy day. Though her second day was a no-dose transition day, she still felt slightly improved from her usual mood. Day 3 acted as a control day, as she noticed the return of her irritability. Over time, however, microdosing helped Waldman gain control over her impulses and temper. Curious about how psychedelics affected her, she discovered that they enhance brain interactions and can even help address anxiety and mood improvement. After a week, she felt more equipped to handle stress, irritation, and an overall happier outlook, attributing it to either microdosing or a powerful placebo effect. On day 1 of her microdosing journey, Waldman felt an immediate difference. Her senses were heightened, making her more aware of her surroundings, from the scent of jasmine to the beauty of the trees. Thoughts of her family sparked love rather than annoyance, her productivity improved, and she felt happier than she had in a long time. After a transition day with no LSD intake, day 3 served as a control day, to allow Waldman to observe the effects of microdosing. On this day, she experienced the return of her irritability, leaving her yearning for the peacefulness of the previous days. As the experiment continued, Waldman noticed her impulses and irritability diminishing. Even when her children were late to school or her dog caused a mess, she maintained a level of composure that was unusual for her. These improvements inspired her to delve into the science behind psychedelics, revealing that they facilitate new neural connections and networks by encouraging interactions between serotonin, glutamate, and other elements in the brain. This can help individuals develop fresh perspectives or even alleviate anxiety, as proven by research conducted at UCLA and NYU. After a week of microdosing, Waldman felt transformed, better equipped to handle anxiety and irritations, and ultimately happier. She concluded that either microdosing was helping her or she was experiencing a remarkably effective placebo effect. Debunking LSD Misconceptions. LSD, originally synthesized by Swiss chemist Dr. Albert Hofmann, has gained an ill reputation since its association with the counterculture movement of the 1960s. However, plenty of evidence points to the drug's safety and even its potential benefits. Although some users have experienced adverse psychological reactions, these are rare and often linked to pre-existing psychiatric illnesses. In fact, a recent study found a correlation between psychedelics and reduced suicide attempts. Understanding the true nature of LSD paves the way for exploring its positive effects. LSD has long been stigmatized, with many believing it to be a dangerous drug linked to psychotic episodes and reckless behaviors, like jumping off buildings. However, this perception is far from the truth. Dr. Albert Hofmann, who first synthesized LSD in 1938 and consumed it throughout his life, lived to be 102 years old. Far from being a perilous substance, LSD is, in reality, quite safe. Rumors about the drug and its devastating effects pervade, but a comprehensive 2008 review in the prestigious journal CNS, Neuroscience and Therapeutics found no documented deaths due to LSD overdoses. Studies even show that ingesting 200 times the typical dosage would not cause significant biological effects on the user. Despite incidents of LSD overdoses, the outcomes have been relatively benign. A 1972 case saw 8 people hospitalized after unknowingly snorting large doses of LSD, mistaking it for cocaine. While some went into a coma, all 8 made a full recovery within 12 hours. Admittedly, a small number of users with existing psychiatric conditions have reported adverse psychological responses following LSD use. But the frightening stories of users leaping off roofs or committing suicide are mere urban legends. In contrast, research published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology discovered a 36% reduction in suicide attempts among those with a history of psychedelic use. The negative stigma surrounding LSD originated from its connection to the counterculture movement and social unrest during the 1960s. Despite this flawed perception, a plethora of evidence demonstrates the drug's safety, even at high doses. As we unravel these misconceptions, we can better acknowledge and explore the positive effects LSD may offer. Unlocking creativity with LSD. Legendary Apple co-founder Steve Jobs credited LSD as one of the most important influences in his life, and he wasn't the only one to find inspiration in the psychedelic substance. Nobel Prize-winning chemist Kary Mullis believed that his work on the polymerase chain reaction, PCR, technique might not have been possible without his mind-opening experiences on LSD. In a study that explored the drug's effect on creativity, participants achieved remarkable results, experiencing intellectual intuition and solving complex problems. Although LSD remains illegal, its popularity has surged in industries like Silicon Valley, where professionals seek to stimulate innovation and novel ideas. Steve Jobs, Apple co-founder, once attributed the success he enjoyed in his life to the mind-opening experiences he had with LSD. Surprisingly, he wasn't alone in this sentiment. Kary Mullis, who won a Nobel Prize for his work on the polymerase chain reaction (PCR) technique, shared a similar perspective. Mullis maintained that his achievements in gene cloning and DNA sequencing might not have been possible without the help of his experiences with psychedelics. The connection between LSD and creativity isn't simply anecdotal. A study involving MRI machines showed that the psychedelic substance generates hyperconnectivity in the brain, enabling interaction among normally unrelated regions. This, researchers posited, allows for the emergence of new ideas and breakthroughs. Early in his career, James Fadiman conducted experiments to explore the role of psychedelics in inspiring creativity. He recruited senior research scientists from innovative companies, including future designers of silicon chips and the inventors of the computer mouse. These participants, all grappling with challenging issues, were given doses of LSD. The results were astounding. Participants' psychometric test performances improved, and they reported experiencing moments of intellectual intuition that enabled them to solve their problems. Fadiman claimed that several patents and products emerged from the session. Despite these promising outcomes, LSD's negative reputation eventually led to the discontinuation of Fadiman's research. However, this hasn't stopped professionals, particularly those in Silicon Valley, from pursuing its potential. Startup employees and tech enthusiasts continue to use LSD in their quest to stimulate their neural connections and foster creativity. Unfortunately, the use of this powerful psychedelic remains illegal. The bias in America's drug war. The racial and class bias in America's war on drugs goes back to its early stages, with stringent prosecution of people possessing small amounts of drugs. Although drug-related arrests disproportionately affect minority populations, drug usage rates between different racial groups do not share the same disparity. America's ineffective war on drugs has led to increased prison populations and racial prejudice among African Americans, while drug production and trafficking remain unchecked, contributing to violence, crime, and more affordable drugs. The harsh reality of America's war on drugs is evident in how the country's legal system handles possession of small quantities of substances, such as LSD or marijuana. Over 40% of drug possession arrests concern substances that nearly 20 million Americans have used in the past month alone. Most of those imprisoned are low-level drug offenders, making up half of all federal prisoners. Interestingly, the author had little fear of prosecution, and she even broke her silence on her own usage of LSD. The reason? She is white and wealthy, revealing the racial and class bias that has existed in America's drug policies since their inception. Dating back to the 1870s, the first anti-drug laws targeted poor Chinese immigrants, while the majority of white, middle-class individuals addicted to laudanum remained unscathed. Similar biases continued with anti-drug campaigns painting African Americans and Mexicans as drug-crazed criminals endangering white populations. This racial discrimination persists even today, with 10 African Americans incarcerated for every white individual convicted of drug offenses. The shocking fact is that white people are 5 times more likely to use drugs than African Americans, revealing the stark racial prejudice in the war on drugs. Rather than addressing the real issues, such as drug production and trafficking, America's war on drugs has led to rising prison populations and widespread racial prejudice. Ironically, despite these aggressive tactics, drugs like heroin and cocaine continue to become cheaper and more accessible, fueling crime and violence in a vicious cycle that shows no sign of abating. Microdosing LSD, the future solution. Although Sandoz Pharmaceuticals first synthesized LSD, the drug became illegal in the 1960s, preventing a microdose version from entering the market. The studies on microdosing have been largely informal, with James Fadiman leading the charge. Fadiman developed a 3-day protocol and published it in his 2011 book. From the 50 users who reported back to him, only 2 claimed negative experiences. Many praised the emotional, intellectual, and physical benefits, as well as improvements to relationships. While Fadiman's research isn't a clinical study, it lays the groundwork for future research in the effectiveness and safety of microdosing LSD. James Fadiman, a prominent researcher of psychedelics, envisions that microdosing LSD could have given popular stimulants like Ritalin and Adderall a run for their money. Unfortunately, the ban on LSD in the 1960s derailed this possibility. Despite the legal roadblocks, Fadiman has persistently championed the informal study of microdosing. His curiosity was piqued by a woman relaying her positive experience with it, leading him to create a 3-day protocol similar to what author Ayelet Waldman employed. Fadiman later shared this protocol in his 2011 publication, sparking around 300 requests and receiving feedback from 50 participants. Of the 50 respondents, just 2 reported adverse experiences with LSD microdosing. Nevertheless, Fadiman's data overwhelmingly highlights numerous benefits. Users testified to greater emotional stability, improved focus and creativity, and enhanced personal relationships. Some even observed unique perks, mitigated depression despite Parkinson's progression, stutter relief, and successful cessation of marijuana or tobacco use. Fadiman acknowledges that his research cannot replace a rigorous controlled study. But his pioneering work paves the way for in-depth exploration of microdosing's effectiveness and safety. Encouragingly, research projects are already under consideration in Australia and Europe, suggesting that a comprehensive study may soon become a reality. So, perhaps it won't be long before the full potential of microdosing LSD is unveiled, revolutionizing our understanding of its therapeutic impact. Microdosing Wonders. After 30 days of microdosing LSD, Waldman observed significant improvement in her mood and disposition. On dose days, she occasionally experienced dizziness or nausea, but the benefits of increased happiness, optimism, and relaxation far outweighed any side effects. Positive internal changes translated to outwardly improved behavior, as noticed by her family members. Intense shame, which usually plagued her during conflicts, was abated. Despite the success of her experiment, Waldman faced the paradox of illegality, possessing an effective, yet illegal drug in a nation consumed by drug prescriptions promoting legal, addictive substances. Waldman embarked on a 30-day microdosing trial of LSD, meticulously documenting her experiences. The dosing days occasionally brought about dizziness and nausea, but the most prominent outcome was an overall sense of happiness, calm, and optimism that dominated her typical state of mind. During the experiment, Waldman had a disagreement with her husband, which usually left her overwhelmed with shame, guilt, and depression. However, amidst the trial, she noticed her emotions were more under control, allowing her to be kinder to herself and not succumb to negative feelings after the conflict. The shift in her mental state did not go unnoticed. Waldman's children observed her improved mood, demeanor, and ability to manage stress without yelling. They reacted unsurprised when informed about her mood medication experiment, having seen marked changes firsthand. As her trial concluded, Waldman found herself feeling optimistic and hopeful. Her self-assessment indicated that she had not only experienced a significant shift in her mental state but also in her behavior. Days in which she could look back and genuinely recognize as good became more frequent. Nevertheless, she faced a paradox. She lived in a society where antidepressants and addictive drugs were legal and widely prescribed, but the substance she found to bring positive change was entirely illegal. While a doctor could readily prescribe a potentially harmful benzodiazepine, the option of microdosing LSD, which produced no major side effects, remains a crime.
In A Really Good Day, Ayelet Waldman raises thought-provoking questions about the current state of mental health care and challenges societal views on the use of drugs like LSD. As you join her on this deeply personal experiment, you will gain insight into the possible benefits, safety, and effectiveness of microdosing LSD for mood stabilization. Furthermore, the book exposes the racial and class disparities within the drug enforcement system, enticing readers to question whether individuals should have more freedom to explore alternative treatments for mental health disorders. This summary illuminates the promise and paradox of a world where an illegal drug may hold the keys to vastly improving the quality of life for countless individuals.